All right, guys. I had not planned on doing a response to the whole Narc thing, the Narc Steven thing, the Narc Steven Asmongold thing. But since it keeps coming up on my show, what I did at the beginning of my stream today is I didn't respond to Narc's video directly. I more specifically responded to Asmongold's response to Narc's video. In case it's not clear throughout the video, I think Narc makes a lot of really good points. I think Narc does have a few gaps. I think there is some hypocrisy in some of the things he says, but he's 100% entitled to have the opinions that he does. I think Asmongold is right in most of the things he says. I think there are a few things he says that I don't agree with, but I don't think there's a problem with that. I think large creator has large creator viewpoint, small creator has small creator viewpoint. And I understand that Steven has now released like a video response. And if you're wondering what my response to that is going to be, I'm not including it here. It's not part of the stream I did today, so it's obviously not here. If it's noteworthy or anybody wants to see me make a response to that, leave that in the comments below. Otherwise, for posterity, so I can just direct people to, yes, this is where I responded. That's what this video is for. So watch, enjoy, leave hateful comments. Some of you, I live in your head rent free, so I know the hateful comments and the thumbs down are coming. Thanks for the algorithm boost. 1.5. Let's go.
This has been a pretty popular video. A lot of people have been wanting me to watch this. Narc, who's been one of the most outspoken and the biggest prophet of Ashes of Creation, says that he's going to be saying it's his last Ashes of Creation video.
Whoa, I take offense at that right away because I was deemed the prophet, but okay.
The copium's running.
Hey, what up, boys? So I make this video with quite a heavy heart, and it's not one that I thought I'd ever make. It seems my time covering Ashes of Creation has come to an end, and from this point onwards, I'll be distancing myself from the alpha, its community, and the developers. I'm sure there are many questions as to why I'm doing this, so today I'm going to explain why and set expectations for this shadow's future. Now, this all started about a year ago, when Intrepid Studios announced that they would be stopping their 250 pack sales temporarily in order to generate a huge amount of FOMO, or fear of missing out, as they continue to show live streams of the game's so-called development. I knew back then that miscommunication or straight-up lies were being utilized in order to hide the truth. I've seen it before. What's he gonna do next? What's he gonna do? Is he gonna stop selling Alpha 2 keys and then reintroduce Alpha 2 keys again 2 months before the Alpha 2? Is that what he's gonna do next? Holy shit, just like he did with Alpha 1. Do you guys remember that? Lo and behold, just as I knew it.
I don't think that's a problem. Is that a problem? Yes, why is it a problem? So if he stops selling something and then he starts selling it, I don't think that's not enough.
The pack sales came back not only in the form of a much lower price, but it also came in the form of 3 phases, delivering a very underdeveloped alpha release that had been promised to us these last 4 years at the price of $250. Leading into this, I had very little interaction with Stephen J. Sharif because I have no interest in actually talking to the man. This is why I didn't do interviews or accept any behind-the-scenes information, because I simply do not care. My priority is making entertaining videos for you, and I didn't feel like doing an interview or having information really helped me in that regard. I loved seeing the game be developed from a normal person's point of view, and I take pride in the fact that I am just a normal guy looking in on this game's development. I think it gives a very relatable and unique perspective that no other content creator really has. My priority is making entertaining videos in a way that I find funny, poking at the state of the game and how much of a potential scam it could be. This has been a very...
I think this happens with a lot of people who get really invested into something, is that once they get really invested into it, and then the thing that they're really invested to doesn't live up to the expectations that they have set for it, they then kind of like turn on it. I think it happens, I've seen this happen a lot with streamers. It's a very common phenomenon that happens where people get like really emotionally invested into like a stream or into like a person or into a movie or a show or something, and then the show diverges from what they want it to be, and then it causes them to basically just like totally get angry, right? And I think that like, especially with Narc, like he got very emotionally invested into Ashes of Creation, and I think in doing so, he created unrealistic expectations for the game.
A successful format because it plays on the irony of a project that is charging $250 but has full control over the narrative, despite how ridiculous everything seems, showing amazing showcases that completely blew our minds. More on this later.
Okay, so I don't think I'm gonna get. I don't think so far Asmongold's wrong. He's exactly 100% spot on. This is where you get into that pseudo relationship with people. You like, and this has happened to me. I'm a small nobody creator, and people. I've had this happen. People start donating more and more money to the show. They donate tons of subs, and then they have a really racist, sexist, homophobic, bigoted opinion, and I don't immediately, I shut them down, I call them out, and I basically tell them, if that's the opinion you have, you're not welcomed here. But yeah, parasocial relationships. They somehow feel that because they've donated $1,000 to PGN Music to help me produce an album, that then I'm automatically going to support them in their bigoted, racist, sexist ism behavior. I do want to say to Asmongold's point of, is there anything wrong with stopping selling something and then selling it again? Yes, no, maybe, not exactly, kind of, sort of. If you're going to say, and I think it goes a deeper point than what Narc stated, if you're going to If you're going to say back in 2017, we don't want to be like every other company, but then you're literally running a standard, you're not even, Intrepid Studios isn't even running a complex marketing strategy. They're quite literally running marketing 101, advertising 101. I mean, you don't even need to have a marketing director to run what they're doing. They're running literally marketing 101, sales 101. This is what freshman business majors learn. Fear of missing out and the sunk cost fallacy are the two things they teach you in marketing to make sure that you keep your consumer base.
Is YouTube. I work for myself.
I'm not sure necessarily if it's like them controlling the narrative if he's making this video, right? I mean, they're obviously not controlling the narrative if he can make this video. So, and of course, they're going to talk about the positives. I know NDAs. Well, they did. The problem is not Narc being emotionally invested, but Steven straight up lying to the community. Okay, well, we'll get to that then.
No way paid or obligated to praise the game disingenuously. Ashes of Creation offers a referral program, and in my opinion, by using the referral program, it kind of invalidates your opinions of the game and systems due to the real money incentive that is offered through this scheme.
Before I hear Asmongold's, because I haven't heard this, before I hear Asmongold's response to this, what I'm going to say is having a referral program. Let me back up just a second so that Narc can have one more chance to say what he said.
Genuinely, Ashes of Creation offers a referral program, and in my opinion, by using the referral program, it kind of invalidates your opinions of the game and systems due to the real money incentive that is offered through this scheme.
Does anybody want to believe that the fact that I have thousands of referrals somehow invalidated my opinion of the game? Because I don't want to hear what Asmongold says yet. I have thousands of referrals. I have one of the largest vested interests in Ashes of Creation's success. So much so that, I mean, even Steven, I haven't made content for a year. And somebody the other day said, the amount of CCs I've seen come and go is disappointing. And even I haven't had a conversation with Steven in well over a year. And Steven still says, to be fair, it's only been 4 noticeable ones. Started with Death's Proxy, Itziz, then Jalan, now Narc. Like, it doesn't matter that I have a vested interest in Ashes of Creation. My company has a vested financial interest in Ashes of Creation's success. But that doesn't matter. I'm going to have the opinions I have, whether or not I may or may not make money. In fact, I think it goes the opposite. I think I'm more motivated to speak out because if I speak out, the referrals I already have are going to be worth more if the game launches. Like, I would have had thousands of more referrals if people didn't find me after finding Lazy Peon. So let's hear what Asmongold throws down.
I think this is a invalid point because you could make the same point for YouTube. I think that if you want to use this point, that making content and promoting the game is popular, and then you have a channel based around the game, you could look at it the same way.
A pyramid, Ponzi, or multi-level marketing scheme, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the content creators using it are receiving real-life benefits by utilizing it. They profit off your $250, so of course they're going to bend the truth to incentivize you to buy in, which leads me into the current state of things.
Number one, the CEO in Steven Sharif has said, don't put any money into the game. And I've literally told people, don't put any money into the game. What I've told people is sign up for the game using my referral code because, you know, it helps fund DMCA free music, right? So for years and years and years, when I said, hey, there's my referral code for Ashes of Creation, use it, sign up for the game, because then when the game launches and you play, I'll fund more copyright free music. Let me and my company shoulder the burden of buying an expensive alpha pack so I can showcase the game and you can ask me 901 questions. And then if you don't like what you see, you're not out any money. Let me as the streamer shoulder the burden.
Personally, I don't think phase 1 was in an acceptable state to test the game.
I think that also his logic with that is accurate and it tracks. If you have a vested interest in something, then you would be more likely to expand on it and explain it in a way that's positive. Yeah, that's accurate. It's a bias. It is. He's right. But I think you could also extend that bias to making YouTube videos as well. So it's very hard to say that anybody with one of these creator codes is biased. I don't think that that's fair because you could apply that to YouTube as well.
To us as a
I'm going to disagree with Asmongold there. And I'm going to disagree with Asmongold quite simply because look at the 2 videos I've done back-to-back on Once Human over on my YouTube channel. I love Once Human. I have 2,400 hours in the game since July, probably a couple of hundred more prior to that in testing. And I talk about the negatives because I think the only way we get change in something is if we talk about the negatives. So I don't have a bias to make positive content. Personally, I have a bias to call out the bad content.
Networking test. Yet, now that the phase 2 has launched, no networking strides have been made, and their so-called dynamic gridding still isn't implemented, despite being told on multiple occasions it's coming. Initially, we were told it already exists.
Right now, dynamic gridding is in place. Right now, what we are doing is we are optimizing, fixing performance around that, and the current goal, which is on target, is that dynamic gridding will be online by the start of Alpha 2.
Then we found out that it's coming in late phase 1, then we're told that it's coming at the launch of phase 2, yet here we are in phase 2, and all they've done is delete 5 of their servers and claim that they've doubled their server workers. They now claim that they have 6.
Okay, so on that note, I did have some people in my community do some research. It is confirmed that they had 100,000 testers. It is confirmed that each of the servers has a 6,000 player max capacity. So you had 100,000 in January of 2023, so 2 years ago, you had 100,000 backers. That was before you reopened Alpha 2 keys. And you only have room for 12% of your tester base. That lets me know that you're going to have a horrible player retention because you can't even retain people with the sunk cost fallacy. People have a sunk cost and they're not being retained. So
K players per server, yet I find it hard to believe that there are even 6,000 players logged in at all, because the whole 1.2 thousand kilometers squared, or 18 biomes, are supposed to host 8 to 10,000 players. So how can just one biome have 6,000? Unfortunately, the state of the networking makes the combat, arguably Ashes of Creation's main strength, completely unplayable, and thus causes the test to feel tedious and boring. But it's just an alpha.
Am I crazy for thinking that that actually makes it make sense? Because if everybody is consolidated into one zone, and then it creates lag with the combat, then wouldn't that make sense that it was actually designed for having everybody in all the other zones? So basically, the assertion is that there's no way that there's that many people in the area, because if there was, how does that make sense? Because the game is intended for 8 to 12,000 to be in all zones, and it's only in one zone. But it would logically track that the combat would be dysfunctional because there would be too many people in one zone, because it's intended for more people to be in more zones. I also think that it's still a problem that the combat is dysfunctional. It would lag. Yeah, it would lag.
For right, I get that, guys. Trust me.
I didn't pick up on that when I listened to Narc's video the first time. Asmongold actually picked up on something I didn't pick up on. I'm going to go a different route because of my background in CPI. What I'm going to say is, if the combat is lagging because you have 6,000 people in an area, then what is the validity of your data that you're getting? Because you're trying to make performance increases to reach a level of performance that then your game isn't designed around. It's kind of like EVE Online. EVE Online can have about 2,000 people on grid before you enter into tie-dye, before you enter time dilation. EVE Online has about 30,000 people signed in at any given time. EVE Online does not need to keep making technological advances so they can have 30,000 people in one system. It would be a waste of time, effort, energy, manpower, resources to do that. You got to figure out what is the maximum capability that I'm ever going to have, I'm ever going to need. And then I want to make sure that I have about 10 or 12, 15% overhead above that. So if you have 6,000 people in one of 18 biomes, the question is why? Why did you scale down your servers to only run one server? Because now you're getting GIGO, you're getting garbage in, garbage out data. How do I know if it's performing the way I need it to perform if I'm not testing it to the level I need to test it?
I've been covering this game for 4 years. I'm well aware that it is an alpha. The state of the game is not what I'm concerned about. It is the seemingly deceptive communication that's going on between Intrepid and their testers. This lack of communication isn't just shared by me, but it's shared by everyone in my community and the majority of the other content creators, all of which straight up quit making consistent content, which leads me into the main point. Phase 2 is simply an unsuitable testing environment. Stephen Sharif claims that this is a true alpha, yet they present the game in a way that is to be played like it's a launched product. We have to grind for 50 hours to even test anything, which doesn't make sense. And
This is a good point. If you want people to test the endgame, you should give them pre-made characters for endgame.
Yep.
I think that he's making a good point with this. And this is what Blizzard does. This is what a lot of developers do if they want people to test the endgame. But I think that they're probably not testing that right now. And that's really the reason. It's like, yeah, they're probably give higher experience rates or anything like that. And so, and I can see why they didn't do that also. But you have to keep in mind that if you have a system where people start at level 1 and you're trying to calibrate the experience gains and everything, you're going to have people that are only going to be playing the low levels primarily, right? And that's just what's going to happen.
why testers are dropping like flies? Because we already did this and tested it all in phase 1. So why did they wipe us and add no additional systems for us to test? To me, the vassal system or level 4 nodes would be one of the main reasons to wipe the servers, yet the vassal system or level 4 nodes weren't even introduced this phase.
I think it's fair. It's fair for him to be demoralized for the server getting wiped and not wanting to re-level. I know I felt that way with like WoW betas, where like I leveled to maybe the max level in the alpha, and then the beta comes out, and I don't want to level to max level again because I just already did it. Or like I felt that way with like I think it was Wrath of the Lich King, the beta. I was like, okay, I'm gonna log onto this for like 1 day, and like I don't want to level 80 because I'm just gonna wait for the game to come out. So they literally let people test the game for free after paying $500 for it instead of hiring people and paying them. Let me just finish. Let's focus on things like one at a time. You re-leveled in New World a few times. Fuck you. You're right. But the last time I got paid for it.
Claim that they're not going to wipe at all. They are instead just going to introduce a new server.
Before we jump around with that, I do want to say this. This is one thing that Intrepid, and if you guys remember years and years and years ago, what I had said was Intrepid needs to stop saying one thing, doing another thing. A lot of game companies do this. And this is where I said Steven's leadership is, okay, I'll call it exactly what it is. Steven's leadership is bad. And it's bad because he hasn't had a chance to develop it. If you guys remember years and years and years ago, what I said was Steven was the equivalent of a second lieutenant. To my knowledge, he had never led a large organization, never had a lot of people under him. In the military, second lieutenants are forgiven, first lieutenants are ignored, and captains are expected. Second lieutenants are forgiven because they're going to make a lot of mistakes. You want them making a lot of mistakes because that's how they learn. You learn more from mistakes. You learn more from fuck-ups than you do from getting it right. with that said, Intrepid was talking about, well, when we get to Alpha 2, we're not going to do any wipes. The sound bites are out there.
So what's going to happen to those old servers? They claimed prior to Phase 2's launch that at the launch of this phase, the desert was going to receive an expansion.
I'm just going to be talking about what's going to
I
land.
do think that like there's an issue, and it seems very obvious that Steven generally talks about things and he shoots from the hip, and he just kind of discusses things as like casual conversation.
That.
And I think whenever you discuss things as casual conversation, you have people that are like hanging on to your every word, and they're waiting for you to say something that they agree with or disagree with. And what ends up happening is that you might say something that you might want to be true, but ends up not being true for whatever reason. And like you see a lot of like, because Steven is a salesman, I think he's a very good salesman, but there's a problem always with like dissonance, and this happens, by the way, this happens to, like every video game. Like in a lot of games, there are things that are promised originally that end up not happening. This isn't something that's exclusive to Ashes of Creation. It happens a lot with World of Warcraft, particularly, and also it happened with New World as well. So in No Man's Sky, yeah, right. And I think that's another example. And so like I think that's it. That's why the strong guy from Hello Games got so much hate early on in No Man's Sky. Exactly, yeah. And I think that's fair to criticize the communication and the way that's communicated. But just because something's communicated in a bad way doesn't necessarily mean that it was intended to be like misleading. So we'll listen to the rest of it.
Hold on, I'm gonna disagree with Asmongold fundamentally right there. Just because something is, hold on, let's give him a chance to say it again.
Necessarily mean that it was intended to be like misleading. So
just because something isn't communicated in a bad way doesn't mean it was intended to be misleading. And I disagree with Zach here because I kind of feel that that's a lot of Gish Gallop, because he just said, if you keep talking, people are going to listen to you in the hopes that you say something that they want to link onto. Well, that means you're being disingenuous. And if you're okay with being disingenuous, then you're okay with being disingenuous. But you're still being disingenuous.
We'll listen to the rest of it.
And on December 20th, we're going to go through what systems are going to land. Come December 20th, let's talk a little bit about what we have coming up for December 20th, right? The desert as well. The desert is probably going to receive a little bit more love than the tropics will, given that its assets are obviously a bit more developed than the tropics location.
This prompted
Okay, its assets are a little bit more developed. Okay, we got to put a pin in that. Its assets are a little bit more developed.
people to finally expect some remnants of the desert showcase that was shown in 2022. Yet what we received was this, an empty wasteland that could be generated in Unreal Engine 5 in seconds, with the Winstead and Mirrorleth nodes being copy-pasted onto them, slightly rotated. The state of the desert has obviously sent a lot of people into a confused frenzy, with Reddit
That's fair. That's completely fair. Of course people are going to think that. Yeah, of course.
posts popping up expressing this concern. This isn't just isolated to me, guys. This is what everyone in the community feels. However, these posts are now being locked by Steven.
Okay, I think the one, if I could give Narc a piece of advice, he needs to stop saying everyone. He needs to stop dealing in absolutes. The majority, a large percentage, a segment of the population. But when you start dealing in absolutes, I know for a fact that not everybody feels that way, because I don't feel that way.
Steven Sharif himself, and people are being banned by Steven Sharif himself for simply stating their concerns. There was a beautifully written post about this, talking about how the project is not the open development that we were promised, and it's Steven's reply to this thread that made me reconsider covering this game. He states that the Desert Showcase in 2022 was not real, and in fact, just a showcase using assets that exist, and actually, it's pretty normal for developers to do this. This is simply not true.
No, it is true. It's called a vertical slice. So he showed a vertical slice of the desert of what it was supposed to be. There's even a term for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is true.
Before Asmongold says anything more, I do want to talk about the idea of a vertical slice. If you show a vertical slice, generally what you're showing is a vertical slice of either A, concept, or B, you're showing a vertical slice of whip, work in progress. And I think where Intrepid has been disingenuous is they've made you believe they're showing you a vertical slice of whip, and they're showing you a vertical slice of concept. And this is the same thing where I walked away from that community over a year and a half ago, 2.5, I fucking don't know. Because, yeah, like the cosmetics.
So both things I think are true. I think it's fair for players to feel like they were misled because they didn't understand the context of that. And the only frame of reference that they would have was that vertical slice. And they weren't really informed that it wouldn't be the same.
Yes.
And then it's also fair to say that Steven is right in saying that it's a normal thing that many video games do. Like, both things are true.
Developers that do this receive a lot of negative backlash, selling promises and pre-orders on a showcase that doesn't accurately represent the game. But in this case, it's not even a downscale of what was shown, it's just a straight up lie. Back in 2022, when the Desert Showcase was being shown, they made it absolutely clear that this was the current state of the desert biome, boasting about
Yes. When they showed this back in 2022, they made it clear that this was the current state of development of the desert biome.
their innovative tools to help them develop the world fast, and in no way, shape, or form alluded to this being just a concept.
You know, these are some of the foliage that environment's been creating
Yo,
as
look at
part
that.
of what's capable of creating an interesting desert biome, because many times in the games that probably we played, the least interesting biome type tends to be a desert. And it's been always fun, as I've experienced in the MMOs I've played, is like, you know, what is how do they spruce up a desert? And one of the interesting things you're going to see in Alpha 2 is how the desert also adheres to seasons and has weather and has giant dust storms and clouds within which there are interesting creatures that might not normally be present unless for that particular weather. That's going to be very interesting as well. You saw a little bit of the sand tornado capabilities with the dust devil kicking up both in the weather presentation as well as a little bit in the desert reveal. And you also saw some ambient effects that live across the top of those dunes, where you're seeing winds of sand getting blown across in the distance. And you know, here's the key.
If you look at this here, I mean, are there because if you look in the background here, it's clear that it's a fucking desert in the background, right? massive desert in the background, exactly what he's showing in this image. It's an oasis. Yeah. So like, what my question is, like, are there oases in this desert? Is it all like this? Like, I don't know. You gotta find it. Yeah, it doesn't. Not yet. No. Okay.
Now, here's the key point. Graphics don't make a game fun. Systems make games fun, but graphics make those systems far more enjoyable.
What Rel just said is this is why you're supposed to have that not representative of actual gameplay on the screen. And this is where I've maintained the idea that Intrepid Studios hasn't officially opened a European branch yet, because the moment they open a European branch, they are bound by European law. And in European law, and if you want to look up, I don't have it, I wasn't planning on doing this, but Alice brought this to my attention, so I jumped over to it real quick, is that if you want to look up the not representative actual gameplay litigation, it has to do with Sega games and Aliens Colonial Marines, where what they were showing and what people bought weren't the same.
Enjoyable.
This, in fact, extends to all showcases in the last
So I do think that it's really, and this is one of the things, like, so just so you guys can get like kind of my bird's eye view of this, I really support Ashes of Creation, and I like Steven a lot, and I don't think that he's a scammer at all, but I do think that there's a communication problem, and if there are this many people who are unhappy with the way that the game has been communicated thus far, you need to sit down and look at why are they unhappy that they've been communicated with this way, what are those frustrations, and I think it's an example of a case of like the customer's always right, where if people feel like they're being
First of all, the quote isn't the customer's always right, it's the customer's always right about what they want to buy.
misled, even if you technically didn't mislead them, or you explained it in a way that made sense to you, if a lot of people get the impression that it's one way, but it's actually something else, they're going to feel like they're being misled. And I think that's a huge problem. So it's a matter of just being able to understand where these people are coming from. And I do think that there is a degree of like, every time that a game comes out, there's like the hype phase and then like the complaining phase. Sure, stop sucking up, Mr. Payroll. You realize that I don't have a creator code, right? Do you know that? Like, because I'm not sure, I don't have an Ashes of Creation referral code. Like, I just want you to know that. I think it's a scam. I think it's poor communication. Yeah, I think so too. And so anyway, I think that's what's happened.
So if you guys saw my YouTube video yesterday, this is why we can't have conversations about video games. It's ironic that this happened to Asmongold while he was streaming. Because I just had to say, like, stop sucking up, Mr. Peril. You guys remember when I did that Mortal Online 2 review? Somebody called me a paid shill for Mortal Online 2. I don't think anything in my Mortal Online 2 video is flattering to Mortal Online 2. I basically said this game is rough. It's a pile of shit. The combat sucks. And the developer was in the chat agreeing with me. It's like, yeah, the combat's bad. That's why I'm currently it's what I'm working on right now. Stop sucking up, Mr. Payroll. What is Asmongold said that is sucking up? The funny part was all the things that Asmongold just said, and I know he didn't lift this from me. I've said the same thing for years. How do you have a director of communications on payroll and the communication sucks so bad? This is not a newsflash to Steven or Intrepid or Margaret. I got yelled at years ago about this. I said years ago in 2020, I said, Steven needs to learn to shut the fuck up. Steven's got a lot of people that work for him. He needs to learn to shut the fuck up and let other people do their jobs. Because Margaret, I do not like Margaret Crone. I do not like her. I do not like her as a person. I do not like her as a human being. I have never liked her. I didn't like her from the first day she came into the community. I didn't like the fact that she walked into the community and doesn't know how to do her job. She doesn't know how to be a marketing lead. She doesn't know how to be a community marketing liaison. She doesn't know how to be a director of marketing. She doesn't know how to do any of those things. What she does know how to do is be an accomplished streamer. She does know how to be a master of ceremonies. She does know how to make people like her, right? But it doesn't work when people ask you a pointed question and you blow them off. You bring in your friend to be a moderator. Your new friend moderator decides to stretch their wings. Do you know how big is their marketing team? Their marketing team is at least 7 people. This is the company that said, we don't do marketing, yet they have a person whose degree is in marketing. Technically, your marketing team and your community management team are the same team. Community management is a form of marketing. So Margaret, the guy with the degree in marketing, Roshan, Vaknar, one other individual. I know there's at least 5. There's at least 5. I'm pretty sure there was 7 at one point. I was told there were 7. Oh, the social media manager. That's marketing, so that's 6. But I'm glad that this happened to Asmongold because it shows you can't have a conversation about stuff because all people want to do is be fucking toolboxes.
And it's not about being misleading. Steam says this is the current state. Steam saying this is the current state of the game. Well, it's premium assets that are not, in fact, in the game. Well, what I'm saying is that if you listen to the language that he used, he didn't actually say that. The way you diverge is so different from other heated topics. Well, yeah, because I understand this better. Like, I know the most about this. So I can get, so, okay, so I'm not on a payroll. So what am I not, and also this isn't a heated topic. It's a fucking video game, number one. Like, what are we even talking about? You're gonna call me a fucking scammer? Or like get the fuck out of here. Like, how's it diversion? Yeah, it's just somebody, you're mad. Like, yeah, I'm defending a scammer. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's so annoying. Yeah, it's, I don't know why people are doing this. I think you're being considerably forgiving here than you typically would be if this was Ubisoft or Blizzard doing the same thing. You'd be completely slamming them for it. You're absolutely right. I would be. And I think also it's fair to be frustrated about this, and it's okay. And I'll be honest, I have different standards based off of the size of the developer and also what the developer's past is. So, like, for example, Ubisoft has a history of scamming people. You know, like Blizzard has a history of not scamming people, but like misleading them or making garbage. And so, like, Steven's never made a game before, and I don't think that there's that same history of behavior. And so all of that goes into it. Also, it's a smaller studio. They're not as established, and you have somebody speaking matter of fact. Like, this is my perspective, and maybe this perspective is wrong, and I think it's an opinion fundamentally. But my perspective is that I would rather somebody shoot from the hip and have honest communication with misfires than someone not have any communication at all. Because
Okay, I don't want to hear what he has to say after that point, because he's gonna justify it, and that's completely 100% his right. He would rather have somebody shoot from the hip and be wrong than not have any communication at all. He's gonna justify it in a second. He's totally allowed to have that opinion. I don't think that's a smart business decision because Steven is the CEO. I think it's fine to shoot from the hip if there's somebody above you that provides top cover. If Steven was the creative director on the Ashes of Creation project and there was a person above him who could come in and be the buck stops here, the matter of fact, what really is intended, what we really mean, what really should have been said, what really should have been communicated. If there was that person, that'd be fine. But Steven's that guy too. Steven doesn't get to say one thing on Thursday, be wrong, and then come back on Friday and say, oh, but wearing my CEO hat. No, because you are a person. You may wear multiple hats, but unless you preface it by saying something like a parent line, like, as your friend, I think what you did was right, but as your parent, I have to tell you what you did was illegal. Okay, let's see.
So I think that what happens is that when people have like kind of just like off the cuff conversations with the community and they're talking about things, they will say things that are like kind of just like, they didn't mean to say that, right? Or like, oops, I didn't mean to say that, but it's like kind of true, kind of not true. And it can mislead people. And I would rather have a person speak with freedom rather than watch every single word that they say, like Blizzard does. And Blizzard had this approach with Warcraft for a really long time, where every single type of communication that they would have would be extremely measured, and it created a very inauthentic feel for the game. And I think it was fundamentally harmful. Like PoE, yeah, like Chris says things about PoE, or like, you know, Jonathan says things about PoE. Oh, sometimes it doesn't necessarily like happen the way people wanted it to. Like with Arch Nemesis is probably the best example I can think of off the top of my head, or Lake of Kalandra or something. Well, I think actually the problem's right in the same league. And so it'd be crazy to judge small studios on the same standard as AAA. Yeah, exactly. He seems to speak in futures and say that Elon does. Yeah, well, a lot of people that are like salesmen or that like do business like talk like that. And I think it's a matter of managing expectations because, and there's a counterpoint to this that I'll talk about as well, is that when people feel like they were misled, they were misled. And if enough people feel like they're being misled, you need to sit back and ask yourself, how am I communicating in a way that's causing people to come to the same conclusion?
That's probably the smartest thing I've heard in this whole video. The speaker does not get to decide how the receiver receives the message. If I feel I was misled, I was misled. You didn't intend to mislead me, but if I feel I was misled, I was misled.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a scammer. But it's very obvious that there's a degree of dissonance here that exists.
Years, and everything shown was not real. The story arcs that showed the world dynamically changing around the Tower of Coffin and Oakenbane Keep, it was not real. The beautiful environment and weather that was shown during the seasonal and commission showcases were not real. The amazing freehold showcase that showed the farm animals, housing, and crops were not real. It was all just a concept with a $250 price tag on it with the promise that eventually these things will make it into the game.
All right, guys, I'm going to jump in here real quick, and I'm going to say I'm going to reverse my decision at the beginning of the video to say I'm not going to include Steven's response. I think from a legality point of view, I think based on Steven's response, I think it's really important to inject that here because now that both sides have been said, I think Narc may have committed a boo-boo. And I want to cover my own ass. So although I said I wasn't going to include Steven's video response, I have watched it. And I think it's applicable to put right here. So this was not in the original Twitch broadcast because it was not available to me at that time. But I am putting Steven's response in right here.
Hey, Asmon. I just watched your video reviewing Narc's very unfortunate video about Ashes, and I wanted to take just a moment to go through a couple of the things that he says that I feel are really disingenuous and unfortunately paint a very negative light on myself, on the team, on the project. And I think that it's very intentional what he did in his video. And I think it's important to the viewers that they have an opportunity to really inspect and understand what Narc is saying and whether or not it's accurate and true and whether or not there's a bias there, and if he's trying to paint a picture that is overly negative for the purposes of trying to defame the project because of whatever reason that he's become discontent about us. But, I think the biggest takeaway in watching his video that can give a real clear sign to the viewers that what he is saying is not accurate is the way he portrays the desert. And 2 years ago we had let me set my speed a little bit lower. 2 years ago we had a showcase of our development update, kind of walking through the zone of the desert that was completed, so that players could see what that desert's going to look like, what the zone's going to be like. And in his video, he goes to the edge of the map. Basically, you can see, kind of this area, which is the entrance into the desert. And this desert is supposed to be relatively large. I mean, it's going to go all the way kind of down out here. And this section is still incomplete, right? We are building the game. We are in alpha. We have been very clear that there is a significant amount of work, of course, for us to do. The approach that I have taken with this project has been one to kind of show that process very clearly to the players. And he makes a claim that, what we show is not real or is fake to some degree or some way, and that's just completely false. He purposefully goes out to the edge of the desert in his video without giving any context to the viewers that this whole section of the desert exists, right? This is some 26 square kilometers of desert area that is present within the world, and he doesn't show any of that, which I think is really just unfortunate. Here we have a little player here. Hold on. Let me give them a Christmas hat because they found me. So, just kind of running through this space, you ask yourself, why would Narc purposefully show for a minute and a half in his video a completely barren section of the edge of the map to try to demonstrate to the viewer that what we showed was not real, when in fact there is a huge portion of the desert that is complete, that is a playable space, that has monsters in it, that is exactly what we showed in our preview of the desert biome. It's completely disingenuous, and it's intended to influence the viewer's perception of us, of myself, and to demean our character, which is just completely unfair. And we don't have a way to inform all of the people who go and watch Narc's video. It has over 100,000 views now, or your video, which is going to have 500,000 or 1 million views, and people are going to walk away from that video and they're going to think, wow, why would they show something that is inaccurate when here is exactly what we showed, right? So I think it's important that people see that, and I think it's important that they understand that this section of the world is here, that we do not show any updates or development that is not real, that is fake. I understand that people have been burned through many other developments that have, shown things that aren't exactly accurate, but that's not the case for us. Here's our scorpion mama. Let's take a look at her. How's she doing? Oops. Okay, she got a little angry. Definitely got a little angry. But we'll leave her behind. So, that's an important point. The other thing that, I wanted to talk about for just a second was that, we're 230 plus people that are working on this project. And Ashes of Creation is obviously a very ambitious MMORPG that we're trying to create, and it's not always going to be rosy and sunshine in the development process. There are steps that we're going to take forward and there are steps that we're going to take backwards, and that's okay as long as we stick to that transparent aspect of showing our community, showing our core audience what we're working on, and what's up and coming, we're now in this Alpha 2 phase where players are capable of participating, 5 days a week, although we've been up for the past almost 3 weeks now, in phase 2. And not everything, we have a roadmap, a very clear roadmap of when additional systems and features are going to be included. And we're going to obviously try to stick to that feature roadmap, but there are things that can happen in development that can set you back. And we are open and honest about what those things can be. And it is very unfortunate when, Narc, for the purposes of acquiring, views and or followers and subscribers, wants to take things to a very negative place because negativity can sell. But instead, he had an opportunity to expand upon what we're doing to kind of educate, people as part of this transparent development process, what it takes to make an MMORPG. And for many years he did that, but over the course of the last year he went to a very negative place, and because of that we didn't engage with him at all as a content creator. And I think that led to him creating this kind of negative echo chamber, which he became beholden to, which is unfortunate. So anyways, I heard your commentary about coming on your show and talking about anything. I am more than happy to do that. Of course, I hate to give any attention to these types of claims, which are just completely false. But when it reaches the level of viewership and interest that it has right now, I am kind of forced to do that. And I know a lot of people look at me and they say, "Hey, you're the director of the game. You shouldn't be, engaging with you should kind of stay above the fray." But that's not why I made this company, and that's not why I started this project. I have dedicated myself over the last 8 years in building this company up from very humble beginnings of just a dozen people when we first started to what it is today, which is a very large project that is in the works and trying to accomplish something that I think players want within the space, which is, an honest team that is not going to be introducing pay to win, that is going to respect the players' achievements and integrity, that is here because we want this game too. So that's something that I think is important, and it really gets lost when creators like Narc or others give him a platform that is just simply completely false, and it's so hard to bear. It's hard to bear as a person who is very invested, invested both monetarily, emotionally, and in my life, to creating something for a group of people that I affiliate myself with, which is, the gaming community, the MMORPG gaming community. So anyways, I just wanted to make this quick video just as a response. I'm going to post it into your channel, and then I would be very, very happy to join you and talk about anything that you'd like to. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yeah, I think so. PoE and Ashes comparison's not because PoE is free and Ashes is paid. It's one thing to promise something just to buy your game and not deliver. I don't think that's a good argument because number one, PoE 2 isn't. And they've said things about PoE 2 and, maybe some things happen, maybe some things don't happen. So you do have to pay to get into PoE 2, number one. And you could say, well, this one costs more. I think that's true. And I do think that having a price tag on getting into an alpha for a game does definitely create a lot of problems. And I think that the issue is that when people spend money on something, regardless of what you add as a disclaimer, people will think that they deserve something for what they spent their money on.
Yes. And that is, we have talked about that in this show numerous times. When people spend some money on something, people have a level of expectation. I said it for fucking years, 4 years. They need to not call this most current testing Alpha 2, switching from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. They had the perfect opportunity to use the Alpha 1 naming convention again by saying, hey guys, while we get to keep some of the stuff that we did, and you can bullshit and lie and not lie because it's a lie that's wrapped in a truth that's wrapped in a lie. Hey guys, we're going to have to redo Alpha 1 because we moved engines, and now we're going to have to revet, revalidate, everything, all the testing that we did. So keep it as Alpha 1. But what we're going to do is, because you Alpha 2 testers have waited a really long time to get into the testing, what we're going to do is we're going to invite all the Alpha 2 testers. It's still going to be called Alpha 1 because that's the level of development that we're at, but we're going to let in all of you guys because while some of our stuff is still at Alpha 1, some is Alpha 2, and we really want to not make you wait anymore. Boom. Hire me as their director of communications because I just said it in a 100 times better way than they did.
And this is like a big problem with like the $500 alpha that they did in like 2021 as well, is that people get this impression, and then after they get the impression, well, then that's it. You don't really have to pay. The amount of keys, free keys is massive. People did pay, and they felt like they had to pay because maybe they didn't know about the free keys. All I'm saying is that, yes, if you take 150, 250, 120, whatever it is, dollars from people, they're going to expect something out of that money. And it's easy to see that when they look at the freeholds and like the video showcases here, without the context of understanding what a vertical slice is, and without that context being very clearly defined, which I don't think that it was clearly defined,
yes,
at least not enough to where like it's obvious that it was not clearly defined because everybody is misunderstanding it, right?
Correct.
Everybody has a different conclusion. So there's clearly a problem that happened. And I do think that it's a recipe for disaster, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
How many of you chose to support the project based on the expectation that the showcases were what they had at the time you pledged, not what will come in 6 years from now? You cannot act like Chronicles of Valeria and not expect backlash from this. But the main thing that is causing me to step away isn't the state of the game. The main thing is that whenever stuff like this is brought up by me or any community member, the narrative is that it's just an alpha, and therefore it's okay. It's not okay. It wasn't okay for all previous Kickstarters to do this, so why is it okay for Ashes of Creation, for Stephen Sharif to sit there on Reddit and call me an uninformed content creator who can't...
Is it okay for... I feel like with a lot of the... Let's be real. When we're talking about like scam Kickstarters, Ashes of Creation is in a completely different league than that. Like if you look at Dreamworld or you look at Chronicles of Valeria, these games were insanely fucking bad. Like it was not even remotely close. It was, it's not like, this is not even like 1/100th. Because they put effort into it? Yeah, exactly. It's still in a league. It's definitely not what it was. I'll read the comment that Steven made. Give me 1 second. Okay, well, I'll let him play it.
There on Reddit and call me an uninformed content creator who casts illusions on people's fears and negativities when I've spent the last 4 years of my life doing the opposite is...
This is the reason why it's bad to invest into one game like this. It's because people get emotionally invested into it. I'll read the rest of the comment here. The MMO genre is filled with shaded gamer who feel like beat dogs, and rightfully so, but here we are making this game with over 100k people participating in this alpha. We will continue to make the game in our vision. If the development process makes you think otherwise, I'll repeat this. For your own mental health, step away. We will be here when you're ready to return. I think that...
So I'm going to stop Steven right there because this is where I'm calling bullshit, and I'll call bullshit because I'll bring the receipts. With over 100,000 people participating in this alpha, really? You had server space for 18,000. Now you have server space for 12,000. Okay. How are 100,000 people participating in the alpha when you only have space for 12% of them? Because I know for a fact, bona fide fact, 100,000 people, not if you had 100,000 backers or over 100,000 backers, the sheer swaths of people that I know who haven't logged in, while our anecdotal evidence, they are representational anecdotal evidence. Entire communities haven't logged in, or maybe one person in the community has logged in. So I would like to see then something from Intrepid that shows a listing of the 100,000 or more accounts that they have and how many of them have logged in since the December 20th phase began. And Intrepid will not provide that. And we all know why. We know they won't provide that listing. Because I showed it the other day. You have 100,000, more than 100,000 backers, but you have 75,000 forum accounts. And forum accounts can be made by anybody, backers or not, with the majority of the forum accounts being made by people who were trying to win alpha keys through forum contests.
That's pretty fair. Am I crazy for thinking that's fair? It's passive aggressive? Of course it's passive aggressive. Yeah, of course. It definitely is. That's not how you communicate to a customer.
No, it's not.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I think that it's not great to say that, but it's what I said earlier. It's that to say that like one content creator is like wrong about something, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like I've had people at Blizzard say I'm wrong or I'm stupid. I don't care.
Except this is the piece that Asmongold may not know. It's Death's Proxy, it's Sizz, it's me, it's Narc, it's Tavern Gaming. It's a handful of nobodies who put their hearts and souls into their content. It's not one content creator. It's not 4 content creators. It's one content creator who had almost 10,000 referrals. It's another content creator who had almost 10,000 referrals. It's another content creator who grew his community to massive numbers. It's not about one person's voice. Remember, my voice represents me and my community, because when I go off center, I lose community members. So yeah, I was never a huge YouTuber with Ash's content, but if my videos are getting 90% up views and I'm getting 5,000 views, means my views are shared by thousands of people. Narc's views are shared by thousands of people, tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, even the president of Blizzard said, he's like, oh yeah, of course Asmon doesn't like rating because he sucks. Like, I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, right? It's like, I'd be like, that's fine with me. It's not just him. Yeah, you don't communicate that way to a customer paying premium price for an alpha. I don't think that's a good way to look at things. And I see what you're saying, and you bring up a good point, but at the same time, I don't like the idea that because somebody pays you money, you can be disrespectful or rude or entitled. I don't. And even though when you pay money, you are kind of entitled to something. That's why you paid the money. But I don't think that you're entitled to that type of treatment.
There on Reddit and call me an uninformed content creator who casts illusions on people's fears and negativities when I've spent the last 4 years of my life doing the opposite is absolutely disconnected from reality. I simply do not accept the bullshit that is being spewed, and nor do a very large portion of this community. But for him to also prey on mental health as a way to defame and dismiss these concerns whilst locking and
Okay, this is one thing that eventually is going to get, and I don't wish I don't wish physical violence on anybody, but Steven in this line and constantly telling people for your own mental health, this is Steven's eventually going to get knocked out for that. Like, Steven's eventually going to be at like a PAX or a Gamescom or a launch party, or he's going to be somewhere and he will have poked the bear of somebody's mental health. Leave people's mental health out of it. Leave people's mental health out of it. I will repeat, step away. You can leave the mental health comment out of it, because if you think a person has a mental health issue, the very last fucking thing you should ever do is be bringing up their mental health.
Banning people who express the same is nothing short of irony. You claim that open development isn't for us, but what I think you mean is that open development isn't for you, Stephen Sharif, because what you're selling is not open development. It's funding at any cost, and if anyone questions it, you ban them. So from the bottom of my heart, I have to apologize to everyone who I convinced to help support this project these last 4 years, because I thought I was being shown the genuine state of the game, not 4 years of Unreal Engine fakery. Now, let's not...
I think this is way too much. Like, I feel like maybe like see what Steven's doing maybe in a few days, like see if he's willing to talk about it, maybe talk to Narc too. I think this is way too much. Like, yeah, I mean, because it's like at the end of the day, like, I think everybody wants the game to be good. Nobody wants it to be a scam, and I don't think it's even in Steven's best interest for it to be a scam, to be totally honest. Like, look at the guys that made Black Myth Wukong. Fuck. Look at the guys that made My Side. The most successful, the easiest way to make a lot of money, not the easiest way. The way to make the most money is to make the best game.
Right.
That's just the truth. Yeah. So it's really in nobody's best interest for the game to be bad. It's not in Steven's best interest. It's not in Narc's best interest. It's not in my best interest. So it's unfortunate that things have become so extreme. And I can see how Narc feels insulted and he feels like he's been slighted. I understand that. I do. Steven commented on a video. No, I'll look at it. I'll look at what he said. But he's making the game to make money. He's making money to make the game. It's a fucking scam. Well, of course he's making money to make the game. Because how would he afford to make the game if he didn't make money? What do you think? Like, I mean, yeah, that's true. You're right. Because he said the game is funded. Yeah, I think Steven's wrong. I think him putting $30 million into it, I think that it's going to cost way more than that. And I think that the best frame of reference for that is Star Citizen. If you look at Star Citizen and you see the amount of money that Star Citizen has cost and the fact that it's still not out yet, and then you look at the other developments of games, like, for example, Assassin's Creed Shadows, $30 million doesn't even crack the surface. They need more money to make this game. And so Steven basically has two approaches to make the game, right? Maybe 3 or 4 if you want to count in different monetization methods. But the two main methods of making the game are release a very weak product or seek investment, or actually there's a third option, which is what he's going with, which is try to get fan funding. This is the same as Star Citizen. And so, the minimum viable product, yeah, I think so. And so, that's the way I see it. It's a real cash shop. Yeah. Star Citizen built a custom engine from scratch now. I think the scale is completely different.
Star Citizen, I don't know what Asmongold was about to say. Star Citizen did not build an engine from scratch. Star Citizen's engine was originally modeled off of CryEngine 3, and now their new engine is modeled off of open source 3D. So no, Star Citizen did not build a custom engine.
Great. I agree with you. Let's say it's only $200 million. Star Citizen is not finished yet, and it's at $800 million. I'm just saying that it's going to cost, like, is there anybody here who's actually disagreeing to think that an MMO is going to cost more than $30 to $50 million? Of course, Ashes of Creation, in my opinion, is a $250 million endeavor at the very, you are just barely, that is the minimum viable product. Think about Concord. Yeah, that's the it's way too much. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, like, shit's expensive now. Everything's expensive now. Entirely agree. Their ambition's very high. I know that. But I'm just saying, like, that's the truth.
Get this twisted. I do not think Ashes of Creation is a scam. There is a lot of potential here. They put a fuck ton of work into this game. I had a lot of fun playing Phase 1.
However, by the way, also keep in mind, Concord was completely mismanaged. Like, and I'm not saying that, like, so Black Myth Wukong, it was in China, so it's a different standard of living, and so it's a different cost of development. But Black Myth Wukong was developed for between, I think it was $60 and $90 million. So, it's not like you have to spend $1 billion to make a good video game. But at the same time, that's, while still so expensive, yeah, it's a lot of money, man. Which is like $200 million in the US. Yeah, exactly, right? And these are real, like, the standard of living in China is totally different.
The fun came from the interactions I had with players, not the actual game itself. The test itself was actually quite tedious and boring, but if the game continues its development, everything that I said during those Phase 1 videos still stands. I just can't bring myself to condone the practices that the game is currently engaging in, and I wish the developers at Intrepid the best. For the audience who continue to watch, I advise to take the things that they say from this point onwards with a pinch of salt. What they say,
I think that everybody always should, and I think
absolutely.
That's accurate. How efficient do you think developers are these days to use their funds? I think that it really depends. It super fucking depends.
Hold on. I'm going to just make sure that I point out one thing so it doesn't get lost in translation. How efficient are developers in using their funds? Well, I know Intrepid Studios had a chef.
Oh, man, I'm just thinking about this. It's not the cost of the game, it's the cost of living in an expensive country, experiencing luxury life. Well, I think there's like a million different things going on. Yeah, it's a lot.
It isn't what they have or are doing, it is what they intend eventually. Now, to conclude the video, I just want to say that I'm obviously not going to stop making content, of course. I will continue, just not with Ashes of Creation. A lot of you have grown to genuinely enjoy my commentary and reliance on uploads, but I felt these last couple of years, Ashes of Creation has held me back. I didn't feel like my intros and comedic skits fit the format of Ashes anymore.
My input as like a content creator is that it's best to transition off of something and like wean yourself off of it rather than hard switch. And so like what I did and like what XQC did and like what Chance did, Soda Poppin', is that as streamers, like you remember this a lot, like XQC would go live and play Overwatch for 8 hours, and then he would play a variety game and like go down in viewers, and he did that for like 6 months to a year, and then eventually the variety games he kept a lot of viewers, and then he played like Dark Souls 3, and like then he had a good amount of viewers, and then I remember the big one was Valorant. Valorant in 2020, like he went up to like 200K viewers, which was like obviously for drops and everything, but that really put him on the map. And then Chance did the same thing, is that he would play WoW and then he would play other games. That's what I did too. And so like it's like cases doing well. Well, in some cases, yeah, it is. And I just confirmed this. Steven actually just messaged me. He said 100% willing and able to discuss whenever you want. Okay, let's do that in the next few days. I'll follow up with Steven off stream, maybe talk with Narc, and see what the best way of doing this is, because I do want to see this game be successful, and I want to make sure that like everybody understands what's going on. Yeah, so like he's watching, like he hears all the feedback. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I feel like this has gotten a bit personal. It's unnecessary, and it's like who does this benefit, right? Who does this serve? I think almost nobody, right? Maybe talk to Thor too, see what he has to say. And yeah, I don't really see the problem with doing that. I think it's in everybody.
It's crazy how things are inflated. EQ was obviously way smaller in scope, but it was made with a handful of people, and they made 2 expansions the year after release. Well, right, but remember two things then. The complexity of games when EQ came out was infinitesimally smaller. Number 2, they didn't make 2 expansions the year after release. They released 2 expansions the year after release for all the stuff that didn't make it into the core game. Because remember, during development back in those days, you had an awful lot of things that you wanted to do, and then an awful lot of things that were going to delay release. So what looks like an expansion is really core viable product that didn't come out. For example, Final Fantasy: A Realm Reborn had the equivalent of an expansion pack before Heavensward. It's called affectionately ARR Plus, A Realm Reborn Plus. It's the bridging story between the end of the main story quest in A Realm Reborn and getting to Heavensward. The truth of the matter is all that stuff was supposed to be in the core game. They just didn't have time, effort, energy, resources, time, effort, time, because they were on a deadline. So all that stuff that should have been done got turned into a steady drip feed of content that came out for a period of time while they did other things.
Everybody's best interest. So yeah. And anyway, so couples counseling, okay. Well, anyway, well, here's what I'm saying is that, like for Narc, like going back to like the YouTube thing, I think that he should start transitioning away, but he shouldn't stop making content for Ashes entirely. He should try, he should try to just kind of move away from it casually. And I hope he knows, like, I'm like super busy and like I'm super antisocial, but like if he wants to reach out and talk about it or whatever, like I'll do my best to try to like give him some insight from like what I've learned over the years. Anyway, we'll move on.
So I stopped them completely, only to bring them back a couple of months ago to the joy of the viewers. Sadly, this burst of confidence was once again stunted by Stephen Sharif feeling offended by my light-hearted jokes towards his game. So I slumped back into the boring format of trying to cover the news. Well, no longer am I going to be restrained by Ashes of Creation. I will continue to make videos, and if you watched exclusively for...
Okay, I'm going to go back 1 second here, because I think Narc needs to recognize something. I think Narc needs to recognize that you said earlier in your video, that's why you've never done any interviews, because you want bullshit. Because an interview with Steven would have gotten you clout. It would have gotten you legitimacy. It would have gotten you numbers. It would have got, because how do I know this? Because everybody who's done an interview with Steven, other than Smurg, who cheats his numbers, so you can never figure out what his numbers are anyway. And cheating your numbers by buying embedded views is allowed by Twitch's terms of service. So it doesn't change the fact that you're still cheating your numbers. Like, my numbers are 31. I have 31 viewers. I'm proud I have 31 viewers. I'm proud I have 31 viewers. I didn't do it with embedded viewers. But can we just all agree that it is strange as fuck for you to have another man's face on your crotch? Can we all just get to the piece that the shirt is probably funny? The boxers might have been funny if you had put, like, the Ashes of Creation logo on your penis. No, man, it's not top memery. It's over the top, like... It's over the top creepy. Like, everywhere else on the boxers is probably fine, but put the Ashes of Creation Phoenix on your cock, man.
Restrained by Ashes of Creation. I will continue to make videos, and if you watched exclusively for Ashes, then my advice to you is thusly: forget about the game for about 2 years, and casually check in on Twitch or YouTube to see if there's been any progress.
To be fair, that is also what Steven said. That is, and I think that he's right, and I think that Steven is right. Just, yeah, 6 years, 2 years, I don't know when, but this is the way that I looked at with Riot. Because, like, Mark Merrill tweeted, he talked about it, and, like, look, like, he knows he can DM me whenever he wants, if he wants any conversation about the Riot MMO, right? He knows that with S-Van and any of the tips, all the other boys, but the reality is that, you know, they had to post publicly that they basically were saying they were going back to the drawing board. And so, like, that's Riot. I'll be honest, though, Aspiration was terrible, character models, movement spells, all bad, outdated, systems won't work very well. I probably, you know what, like, maybe after I finish, I don't know, like, there's a few other games I want to play. I might try to play Ashes and, like, get a little bit farther ahead in the game off stream, but it would be kind of sad to do that without being able to do it on stream for, like, the viewers. So I don't know, like, what the right approach is.
Now,
decaying,
just
right?
put the game into the back of your mind, because there isn't going to be any significant progress for a while, and that's okay. I have a plan going forward in 2025, but one thing is for sure, I will no longer have my creativity held back trying to cater to a man who doesn't want to hear criticisms. I will extend my format beyond MMORPGs and start covering all sorts of games with the intros, jokes, and old format that you guys grew to love, because I only have one goal on YouTube, and that's to make entertaining videos that make people laugh. Now, obviously, changing the direction of the channel is going to be a long journey, and that means I'll be streaming full-time throughout 2025, and upload cadence on this channel will slow. I will be uploading highly edited videos similar to my old format on the games that we play on stream, so come join us over at twitch.tv/Nargaverse as we begin this new chapter. I cannot thank you enough for watching and supporting my videos throughout these last 4 years, and should you choose to stop watching for the time being, I hope to see you again in the future as I show up in your algorithm covering a game that actually exists.
So I think that, I mean, this is what happens, I think, with a lot of people that get really, really invested into something, is that there's a point where it's very rare that something happens like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, where a game comes out and it lives up to people's insane and unrealistic expectations. It is like, bro, like, this never happens, right? Masterpieces, yeah, like Harry Potter, that's another really great example, true. Like, yeah. And so a lot of viewers, all these haters, well, I think that people can be, I don't know, like, I'm trying to be as fair, and so appreciate the amount of support and positivity. Yeah. If you follow streams on Narcaverse, this is something else. Steven apparently made a comment. I can't really see it on here. It's not showing. Maybe it's not the bottom. People downloaded it. I'm not sure. But either way, people always hate. Man doesn't want to hear criticism. Is listening to feedback. It's constructive. Sadly, Narc doesn't do any constructive criticism. Just saying something doesn't work is not enough. You need to report problems, bugs, and stuff that he needs to know. They will not come and watch your video to see what you have to say. Grow up, Narc.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to stop right there. No, saying something doesn't work is completely fair and legitimate feedback. Hey, this doesn't work. It's not my job to tell you why it doesn't work. And I want to remind people, there's a quote out there on my channel from an interview with Steven where I actually tried my best as an interviewer and a CPI guy to insert a little bit of standard into Intrepid. And what I said was, and I can find the clip, it's in one of my interviews. What I said was, while interviewing Steven, was people have to realize that feedback of this sucks isn't good feedback. This sucks because is actionable feedback. And Steven's like, no, this sucks is fine. Well, if you don't set up how you want the feedback and you say this sucks is fine, what I didn't pick up on it until years later was Steven was fine if people said this sucks because he could discount that. Because guess what? There's an awful lot of people telling them, Ashes of Creation, this sucks. The smartest thing to do would be to take what works in other MMOs and copy it with minimal improvements. No, the smart thing would be to take what works in other MMOs and copy it with maximized improvements. Don't reinvent the wheel. Take the wheel and do better things with it.
Well, it's very obvious that actually they did watch the video and they did see what you had to say. And Steven was probably watching me right now. He talked about it. Like, they know what you're saying. Like, these developers, unless you're talking about like an Eastern developer, many of these people, they are watching and they're reading what people are saying. They 100% are. Now, I understand it must suck to get like negative feedback about your thing. Like, of course it sucks. And I don't think that they should ban people for talking about the stuff either. But I think it's like both things are true, where I think that people are creating unrealistic expectations. But I do think that the way that the communication for the game has indulged those unrealistic expectations in a way that I think is partially valid.
Absolutely.
That's it. Even Blizzard though? Yeah. No, I think that a lot of the Blizzard devs, yeah, I do. I think that they know what's going on in the community. I think they read about it, they see it all the time. And like you see that in like the leaked chats where like they're talking shit about like me or somebody else. Yeah, they watch the videos. They know. They know what's going on. Absolutely they do. Narc never set expectations, high expectations though. You think Narc didn't set high expectations? I think that he did. Personally, I think that he did. So maybe he might not think that, but that's the way that I felt like watching his content. So he for sure did. Yeah, it got me hyped for it. Yeah. Anyway, we can talk about it, more. But my point is that I think the best thing for the game and the best thing for everybody would just be to sit down and have a conversation about it and just look at what the complaints are, what the criticisms are, and understand where things are going and like what the time frame is. I think that's probably the best way to do things, rather than like I think it's gotten very personal. And
except the problem is Intrepid's not interested in doing that, and I know Intrepid's not interested in doing that because all you have to do is go to my YouTube channel. For the years I was making, because am I a negative person by nature? No, I'm not a negative person by nature. What I am is a room for improvement. Good is the enemy of best, but best is the enemy of better. If you do 15 things good and there's 3 things that need improvement, I don't give a shit about the pat on the head, the pat on the back, the cookie. Like, if you're not going to give me a raise, you're not going to give me a cash bonus. I don't want a fucking pizza party. I don't want a Gene day. I don't want half a day off. Fuck it. Because I take time off when I'm supposed to take time off. Right? And perfect runs around shaking all 3. You have 15 good things in a video and 3 things that need improvement. I let all the other content creators rah cheerleader around the 15 great things. The community doesn't need to talk about the 15 great things. I want to talk about the 3 things that need improvement. So a lot of my videos are, you said this is a problem. This is why it's a problem. Look at this over here. Look at this data from over here. When I made my Freehold video, People didn't want to talk about freeholds anymore, where I literally said, with your changes to how you're doing freeholds, say goodbye to drawing any part of the Final Fantasy XIV population out of Final Fantasy XIV for these reasons. Number one, Final Fantasy XIV players' biggest complaint is that they can't get housing at all, so they can't do airships and submarine progression for their freehold. Number two, you were already going to struggle with Final Fantasy XIV players because you're talking about players who are very much instance content driven, instance content driven, no open world PvP, no open world in general because it's transitional zone lines, right? And Final Fantasy XIV players aren't going to deal with a 2.5 hour fucking trek to go do content because Final Fantasy XIV was built after Final Fantasy XI. Final Fantasy XI did that hour to 2 hour transition. Any Final Fantasy XI players, all I have to say to them is Juno to Sky, Juno to Sea, Sea to the prison, and people are going to be like, fuck. Airship, the walk to airship, and people are going to be like, oh, no. They're going to be like, fuck. So what Final Fantasy XIV do? They realized, Yoshi P and company realized, and even Final Fantasy XIV, the original, not A Realm Reborn, they had put in 30-minute walks. And the player base was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you 30-minute walk? Are you for real? So you're not going to... Ashes of Creation has no chance to draw out the Final Fantasy XIV player base. So when Asmongold says, let's sit down and let's talk about all the issues, for years and years and years, I talked about the issues. I was ready to show up at lunch. I was going to fly out to San Diego, sit down with Steven for lunch. And then what they do? They didn't do another interview with me. Why? Because Margaret and the marketing team and everybody else got offended because I called them out for their shitty behavior. And then they were worried what I was going to ask Steven. Steven can't do the interview he wants to do with me because he has to keep his fragile, sensitive employees happy. One of the engineers at Intrepid got upset because I made a comment and he went and he whined to Steven. Whined, not complained, literally whined because I saw the message. And I was like, well, you're not a grown-ass man. You're a baby. If you got a problem with me, son, I'm on Discord. You got a problem with what I said about you and your engineering team? Open a DM. Open a DM, and with the very first line of your DM, just say, I will remind you that you have an NDA between you, your company, and Intrepid Studios. Cool. NDA reminded. I choose to engage in this conversation. No, what it was is you're a pussy who's fragile, who went and ran to Steven, who literally was like, okay, I understand, I'll talk to Jay. And then Steven laughed at your ass when I called you a fragile snowflake. And he's like, yeah, he kind of is, but I still have to talk to you about it. Like, how about this? How about the netcode in Alpha 1 sucked ass, Mr. Engineer? So why are you upset that I'm saying the netcode sucks ass? We have rubber banding. Why don't, instead of you being offended by what I say, why don't you, man up, son? Why don't you be like, man, my work is shit. Let me go do a better job.
Yeah, superb. Thank you very much for the 10 subs. I appreciate it. It's gotten very personal, and I don't really think that serves anybody's benefit at all. Do you think Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter have an advantage of no expectations? I don't agree with that. I think that they had a huge expectation. I feel like Harry Potter, to be honest with you, I think Harry Potter is like it is a generational cinematic achievement. Just bar none. That's it. Like, it really is. Like, the problem is, like, a lot of Harry Potter fans are like cringe, but man, they really cooked with that. It's fucking amazing. And even the ending of it, like, the ending was good, right? I mean, like, maybe I kind of wish a couple of things happened differently, but overall, yeah, everyone knows Harry Potter, exactly. And then also Lord of the Rings, same thing, exactly. Snape was 10 out of 10. Yeah, I think that anybody who's like familiar with like the lore of the thing would probably think that's usually most people's favorite character. So it makes sense. But anyway, yeah, people grew up on Harry Potter. Yeah, I did. I remember, like, watching the movies when I was a kid. I mean, for sure. So anyway, that's generally it. Battle of Hogwarts would have been better. Yeah, sure, right? But like, anyway, that's why they split the last book into 2 movies. But yeah, that's generally the way that I see it. And I feel like Ashes of Creation definitely suffers from people having high expectations for it. But also, it's a matter of communication and what people are hoping for. And what I'll try to do at some point is maybe try to play it myself and like give like an actual like fair shake of it as much as I can. So yeah, that's the best that I can do, right?
So I don't know why people would think that I was gonna. Great. I have no idea why people think that I was gonna be angry about Asmongold's take here. Asmongold had a really good take there. That was a really good take. The problem is that where I think there is a little bit of and this is where Steven needs to change, or Ashes of Creation and Intrepid Studios' worst enemy is Steven. And I hate to say that, but Steven is going to be the reason that the game fails, because he is going to alienate so many people, because he already does. Like, Steven's attitude about anything, if you say something negative about his company, even if you're telling the truth, they're upset. Like, people in the Ashes of Creation community attempted to get refunds, which they believe they're entitled to. These people believe they're entitled to a refund because of fundamental design changes contrary to what was originally promised and offered. And since Intrepid won't even have a discussion about giving people refunds, individuals went to the California Attorney General, they went to the Federal Trade Commission, they went to the California Franchise Tax Board. And the problem is, when you make enemies, when you make enemies, then what happens is your enemies wait till you're weak. It's like the movie Chronicles of Riddick. Do it now while the beast is wounded. But then you've got people that used to be your friends telling you you have a problem, and you're getting dismissed, where they're like, oh, you're operating in violation of the California Franchise Tax Board regulations. Oh no, it's just a minor clerical error. Dude, it's not a minor clerical error. You owe over $30,000 in back taxes.